Hello and welcome to video 2 in this build log series. In this particular series of videos, I'm building Rasniklov's Constrictor Mark II Interdictor Cruiser from the Star Wars universe. This is a large and detailed custom Lego model. It has about 4,500 parts. And in this particular video, I'm going to kick off the build and get roughly, I think, to the halfway point in the build. I will do a third and final video in this series where I complete the build. And in that video, I'll also share with you sort of my final observations and review comments about the model as a whole and my overall sort of build experience with this model. Now in this particular video, I'm mainly going to be filming from an overhead view, and the reason for that is I think it'd be quite interesting for you to sort of get that bird's eye or that top-down view so you can see the model grow right from the start all the way through to a finished product. And I'll be filming over a number of days in different build sort of sections, and I'll stop at various points and make some comments and observations and show you any of the details that I like as the model is built progressively. If you have any questions or comments about this particular build, please leave those in the comment section below. I definitely welcome them and I will respond to any sort of comments or questions that you post. So I'm going to go ahead right now. I've got the instructions loaded here. I've got my workspace set up. I've got all the parts that I need. So I'm ready and excited to go. I'm going to go ahead and build the first section of the model off camera and come right back to you and show you that and make a few comments and observations about that initial stage of the model. So it's time to get started. What you're looking at now is steps 1 through 67 of this build. And really what this section involves is fleshing out some of the interior details of this model and building out the Technic underlying structure that provides sort of strength for that interior section. And I think will be used to sort of provide rigidity and strength for the rest of the model as well. Underside, quite easy, whole lot of Technic beams and Technic connections as you'd expect. And on the top here, a lot of smooth tiles and so on used to build out the details of this model. I particularly like the use of dark stone grey for the interior of this model. It just has that sort of presence already that you'd expect of an Imperial Star Wars vessel. Now, in terms of rooms, so it looks like there's going to be sort of 4 rooms here. You've got a room either side here. I guess as the rest of the model is built out, we'll sort of find out what those are for. At the rear here, we've got what looks to be like a recreation type room. So we've got a food stand type thing here, and I've got this stormtrooper helping himself to a copy, which I thought was quite cute. And I've got a TIE fighter pilot here just relaxing in the chair there to a game. I like the little details here. There are some fold out bunk type beds. Now they won't fold out all the way because they're blocked by the minifigure here, but they do fold all the way down quite nicely. I just thought that was a nice detail there. And then at the front of the model here, we have what will be the bridge and the command center of the model. I particularly like the chair for the captain here. It just looks great and it looks like sort of quite raised there along that section there. Just looks fantastic. So I think as I build out the side sections of this model here, these rooms will become a lot more defined and there'll be additional detail added to those rooms. In terms of minifigs for this model, I was initially going to buy a whole lot of Imperial Crew type figures off Bricklink. However, the prices for Imperial Crew or Star Wars Imperial Crew figures are quite obscene on Bricklink as I discovered to my horror. So what I've done to get these figures here is actually raid a few of my older Star Wars sets. There are 4 figures that come here from one of the older TIE fighter sets that I disassembled for parts quite a long time ago. So I'd recommend picking that particular setup or using that set if you have it for a couple of the figures here. That set will provide you with one of this Imperial Crew member here and the Imperial Trooper here, the TIE fighter pilot in the back, and then this black droid here as well. So that was quite a good find. I'm quite happy with that. That saved me a fair bit of money. The Stormtrooper, you can find those in many sets. I picked it up from a battle pack that I had lying around. And the figure that I've used here as the captain of this particular ship is actually the Director Krennic minifigure from the Krennic shuttle set. I've just replaced his hairpiece with a grey hairpiece there, and I think he works really well, and I particularly like the way the white there just provides some contrast. The final Imperial crew figure, let's rotate this around, that I have here. Now, I'm not quite sure what set that came from. That was just one that was loose in the particular bag of minifigs that I was hunting through. And I didn't have a little cap for him like I do for the other Imperial crew member, so I've just used a hairpiece for him instead. One feature that I particularly like is, that I've sort of noticed so far, is this section here is actually a handle for this model. So it sort of slots down and raises up, and it provides a really nice way to just easily pick this model up. You can imagine when this whole model is assembled, it's going to be quite sort of an awkward model to handle. So to have a nice handle that you can use to sort of pick the model up and even swoosh it around if you want to, I think is a great idea and a great feature the designer has included in this particular model. So looking really good so far. I think the interior is looking great. It's not even finished. I'm quite excited about that. And it's something definitely, I think, even when I have this model predominantly on display, I will definitely from time to time, open this up and have a look at the interior. The designer's just done a great job, and I think it would be a shame to kind of have that hidden away all the time. I may actually even display it with the hull sections open so that people can actually see the interior for this model in its display form as well. This is starting to look amazing. So as you can see here, I've completed construction of these two side panels, the side sections here. They're extremely strong. So they're made up of Technic beams reinforced with tiles on this top side and plates on the underside. And I'm particularly impressed with the way the designer's actually gone about attaching these side sections to the center section of the model. They're attached at multiple points, and using different sort of Technic pieces and some hinges actually deal with these angles extremely well and attach them in a way that give this model a lot of strength. So it's very strong, it's very rigid, and you can tell straight away that it's going to be able to really bear the weight of those top panels and the underside and kind of not sag or have drooping sort of issues that some of these larger models may experience. I think this one is going to sit true and straight for its life. It looks really, really good. I also like the way some of the interiors are starting to come alive more. So we've got some details here in the bridge section where we've got some control surfaces now in the bridge. We've also got some control elements on the side here that will be for these gravity well projectors that will sit in those 4 voids there. And it's just sort of looking amazing. I'm really happy with the interior on this model. And also the side detailing is quite nice as well. So you can see here the greebling on these sides of the models. I particularly like these turbo laser batteries here, and they're on this side as well. But overall, looking amazing. These sections here are hinge type Technic elements that I believe the hull plates will attach to and allow those plates to sort of open or close. Now, the particular step that I'm up to now is to build the display stand for this model. I've decided to go with a custom clear acrylic stand versus the black Technic construction that the designer specified. And the reason for that is I like my models, especially Star Wars ships, to sort of have that illusion like they're floating or they're flying. And I always find a clear stand, a clear acrylic stand, just looks that much better than sort of a black stand, which to me can look a little bit distracting to the eye. Now, this particular stand just had made by a local plastics supplier, wasn't expensive at all. It's just a simple Perspex sort of plate and then a rod piece with a plate on top. I've attached some Lego elements to the top of this to allow it to seat to the underside of this model. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you that now. And while I've got this here, you can really see just how reinforced these side sections are with all the plates on the underside of those Technic beams here. And of course, we've got that really strong Technic construction down the center line here. Now this stand will just attach in where the stand is supposed to go in this model in the center here. I believe this will be the center of gravity for the model. It'll be quite well balanced. And I will eventually just put some pins here and here just to lock that stand in. Now, even with the model in its unfinished state, I can actually tell it's going to be very well balanced. So of course, it is a little bit front heavy at the moment, but when I build out this rear section, add the rest of the weight of those parts at the back of the model, I feel like it's going to be sort of quite well balanced and sit sort of level and true. But overall, extremely happy with the way this is coming together. It's been a lot of fun to build. I'm looking forward to continuing on the build and to show you guys more as I go. Okay, I'm at the halfway point with this particular build. I think it's a good point to actually wrap up video 2 in this build log series. I've done a little bit more work since the last section of the video by building out a few of the framework sections at the rear of the model here. And I've started what will be the command section or the bridge of the model. But I am at page 318 of 629 in the PDF instructions here. So it really is at that halfway point. And I think it's a good time to sort of wrap this video up. In the third and final video in this build series, I'll take you through building the hull plates that sit on top of this model on the underside and completing off the engine details in the rear section of the model here in the bridge. And I think in that video, I'll actually do some close-up views so you can get a really good appreciation of not only sort of the side details or the external details, but all these lovely interiors as well. As you can see, the model has got a good size to it, and I'm still particularly impressed with that dark stone gray color scheme for the interiors to sort of really give that strong presence to the interiors. Now, I think if I had to comment on 2 things that I really like about this model so far, the first is just how solid and robust this model is. It is hats off to the designer for that clever use of Technic elements and the way everything is sort of joined and cross-braced to create a strong frame for this model and yet still have all these amazing void spaces here for the interiors. So I'm highly impressed with that, and clearly the designers put a lot of thought and time into getting that all right. And of course, I love these interiors. There's so much, interesting details, and adding the minifigs in here just seems to give this model some character and bring it to life. I know as I've walked past the studio and doing some sort of more work on this progressively, it's really these interiors and all these details that constantly put a smile on my face. So far, I'd highly recommend if you like what you see so far and you like what you see in the third video when I finish this all off, I'd highly recommend you go ahead and purchase the instructions and the parts and build this yourself. It really is a great model. Now, in the first video in this build series, I talked about sort of this model itself and getting organized in terms of sorting out my parts, and shared with you a few different build tips and tools that I use. So if you haven't seen that video, I'd highly recommend you check it out, and I'll put a card up for you now. All right, until I see you in that third video where I finish this all off and share this with you, take care for now, and I'll see you soon. Bye. And over here, the particular figure that I've used for the cap, So as I mentioned, very strong and robust model, and it's not even complete yet. So it's just gonna seat right in there. And I'll use some, bit of a blooper there. I will use some pins, which I'm definitely gonna need after that sort of incident. I will use some pins to actually connect the stand in here and here, just to lock it in, which I clearly need after that little blooper there.